Shalom, everyone, and today we're going to discuss calendars around the world. It is a much deeper topic than you would think. It shows a lot about the structure of humanity, and we'll understand, I hope we understand better the calendar, the Hebrew calendar, other calendars through this study. So let us start. So the calendar that is the dominant calendar right now around the planet is the solar calendar. It is celebrating the New Year's on January 1st. It has a very simple, easy to calculate system. This calendar was became, because it is so precise, it became the dominant calendar around the planet, not just because it was a calendar of the colonial powers that basically, this way or another, took over the world's economy. But as I said, it's also the most practical, the most easy to calculate. Okay, the creation of the Western calendar, which is basically called, it's also called the Roman calendar, because it was created in Rome. It went through a lot of transformations. In the beginning, it was a Lunisolar Calendar, and then it became a totally solar calendar. And it took about a while till it got the shape of the calendar that we know, and it was finalized only in the 16th century, when it was realized that the 11 days missing in the calendar, because there was a leap year every once in 4 years on February 29th. They realized that that's not exactly accurate, and you need to adjust with 1 day every century. So the result is that now there is a Gregorian calendar, because it was Pope Gregor who was behind the decision to move the calendar 11 days forward. And therefore, since then, since the Gregorian calendar applies only to the Western Christian world, the Eastern Christian world is still using the Julian calendar, which means they are behind several days. So if we go into the Kabbalistic understanding of why is it that a certain culture is using a certain calendar. So Kabbalistically, when we are talking about the solar calendar, which means it's a calendar that is totally wholly dependent on the sun. And on the physical layer, the sun is a symbol of masculine physical power, which is practical, creative. The sun, it is a fire element. I'm talking about the external aspect of the sun according to Kabbalistic writings. It is about domination. It's about competition. This is exactly Kabbalistically the branch of humanity that is called Esav or Edom. We know Esau was the son of Isaac and Rebekah, and they had two sons. One was Jacob, one was Esau. Esau is the founder of the branch that is called Edom, which from that came out what we know, the civilization of the Western world, which is dominantly Christian. So if we look at the whole civilization that is behind it, As we said, it is masculine power. It is very practical and precise, very creative, because fire is always creative. It is, we know what's behind it is consumption. Fire is an element that symbolizes consumption, because the moment the fire stops consuming, it's dead. So it needs to consume all the time. It needs to grow all the time. It needs to colonize, take over all the time. It is very competitive. And also, as we said, again, very self-creative, as Rabbi Zakloria is saying, you can watch a bonfire for hours and you cannot get bored. It's always recreating itself. So this, it's not for by mistake that the Western civilization, which is the most dominant civilization on our planet, is using the solar calendar, because the calendar is very practical, very precise, very right to the target. You want to calculate fiscal years. This is the most perfect calendar to use. However, you have to remember, we'll talk about it later on, this calendar has been evolved in a very illogical way. For instance, whoever knows a little bit French or Latin, the month of September, whoever knows a little bit French or Latin, knows that sept is 7. Although in the this Western calendar, September is, everybody knows, it's the 9th month. And what month comes after the 7th month? The 8th month, October. Octa means 8 in Latin. And after that, we have November. Nova is 9. And December, Deca, means 10. So really the meaning behind September, October, November, December is the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th month. So how is that possible? Because, people say this is the month of September. They basically say this is the 9th month, but they mean this is the 7th month, they mean the 9th. How did that happen? We'll come to it later, but the Roman calendar had in the beginning only 10 months. Somehow, when they added 2 months to it, they didn't really bother to add them after December, so it doesn't make it really funny, but they added it before in the summer, like July and August. Okay? July after Julius Caesar and August after Augustus Caesar. Okay, so it's very illogical calendar if you think about it. Still, it serves the purpose. We'll come to it later on, but meanwhile, let's see the bigger picture. So this is the solar calendar, but we know that we have also another civilization using the lunar calendar. The moon, is, according to Kabbalah, the feminine symbol. Feminine means emotional. It is the element of water. It is passive, fantasies, hysterical, lunatic. When you say luna means moon. In many language, the word for insanity has to do something with the moon. Even in Hebrew, you want to say that somebody is lunatic, you use the word saharuri. Sahar is the crescent of the moon. It is very romantic. It is very much based on respect, conservatism, and tradition. This one connects to the branch of Ishmael, which is the Arab nation which generated the Islamic civilization. Okay? So that's why the Islamic civilization is using the lunar calendar. This is the reason behind it. Now, it is not very precise. You cannot really calculate the time, fiscal years with it, because the 12 moons, it's about 355 days, which means there are 10 and a half days missing relatively to the solar year. So what happens? So every lunar year, we are losing 10 and a half days. And that means that every 3 years, it's a whole month backwards, more than a month backwards. And therefore, whoever follows somehow the Muslim calendar, you realize that the Ramadan, the most famous holiday of the Islamic calendar, is drifting through the seasons. It could be could be in the summer, then after a few months, it drifts into the spring, into the winter, always drifting backwards. So we understand that we have over here another state of mind, another civilization. We know that the Arab Muslim world is not so much into the competition of generating knowledge. You just look at the number of Nobel Prizes that were given to people who belong to this culture. It's not their cup of tea. Like this competition of creating, generating, the move of science and power towards self-creativity and recreating yourself all the time. This is not part of the Islamic civilization. It is not part of Ishmael. And again, Ishmael is a branch that comes out from Abraham, which is the right side, which is water, again, the power of water. And that's why it's more feminine, which means it is less dominant in the creation of a new world all the time, new cultures all the time. It's more into conservatism. And what we see right now in the world, when we see a fight among the civilizations, so we see how Islam is trying to go back, pull everybody back to the 7th century, while the Western civilization is in a rush, like there's nothing more important than reinvent the today, the tomorrow, the day after, and so on, and just erase whatever was in the past and reinvent all the ideology, all the thinking, all what life is about, human life and so on, destroying the family structure, the society structure. It's all part of that. You know, when fire is not under control, could be really devastating. Just in the name of just burning everything and recreating everything. So this is the solar calendar versus the lunar calendar. Now we have the Lunisolar Calendar. This calendar is, although people are not realizing, but this is a very common calendar also. Lunisolar Calendar, it's a moon. Luni is the moon, solar, sun. It's a moon-sun calendar. Which are the calendars who are using the Lunisolar Calendar? In addition to the Lunisolar Hebrew calendar, there are also the Samaritan, which is only a few hundred people follow that yet. But the Japanese, the Tibetan, the Buddhist, the Hindu, the Burmese, the Bengali, the traditional Chinese, Vietnamese, and Mongolian. Also in the past, ancient Greece and ancient Babylon, and also ancient Rome. They were using a lunisolar calendar. What is a lunisolar calendar? It is a calendar that somehow takes together the sun and the moon, but this is much harder to calculate. Okay, how these calendars are working? All these lunisolar calendars are working on cycles of 19 years. In a cycle of 19 solar years, which means, remember we said there are 10 and a half days missing every year between the solar and the lunar calendar. So if you calculate, you'll find that every 19 solar years, the lunar calendar, the moon calendar, is lagging behind exactly 7 moons. Therefore, in a lunisolar calendar, there are what is called leap years, in which another moon is added 7 times every cycle of 19 years. That will be, as I said, in the Hebrew calendar, with the Japanese, Tibetan, Buddhist, Hindu, Burmese, Bengali. We're talking a big part, because if we put together all the Chinese, all the Hindu, and the rest of the Eastern cultures and nations, and together with the Jews, it's not too many, but together we are having a very big, it's much bigger than the Western society. It is much, much bigger in numbers. However, this is being also used only in these cultures, only for traditional holidays. For instance, whoever follows will see that the Hindu, all of these calendars, their holidays follow the moon cycle. For instance, an example, the Chinese New Year will be always starting on a new moon, and it will continue till the full moon of that month. Okay, you always see that works. You see also in the Hindu calendar, all the most famous holidays, like Diwali or like Holi, all of them fall either on a new moon or a full moon. And the same with the Hebrew calendar. Okay, what's special about the Lunisolar calendar? Why is it that those cultures, we're talking about huge amount of people, we're talking about more than 2.5 billion people on this planet, and could be even more than that, because if we add also the Japanese, it's close to 3 billion people. They're using a lunisolar calendar, not just the Jews. What is special about it? It's all about understanding that this world is a combination of physical and metaphysical, spiritual and mundane. And these are cultures that are based on both worlds, uniting, or more like bringing together both worlds, the spiritual and the physical. Let me explain how it is from the Kabbalistic point of view. So when we're talking about the moon versus the sun, so the moon is the feminine receiving force. How do we know? The moon has no light of its own. The moon has only the light it reflects, okay? And that is humanity. We have no light of our own, only the light we reflect from the Creator. So when is it that we shine? We shine when we reflect God's light by giving, by sharing, by going out of our way and doing things for others. While the sun is the male giving force, which is more the dominant power in this world, which is God. God's force, in a monotheistic at least perception, is like the sun. It's an endless source of power. The sun is shining always. Yes, the earth can turn its back to the sun. That's called night. Okay, but that does not affect the sun. How do we know? Because when we see the moon in the middle of the night, the moon is reflecting the sunlight that never ceases to shine. Okay, same thing is the light of the Creator. The light of the Creator in our universe is constant. However, in order to be able to reveal that light, you need to reflect it. So in the darkest days, you can always reveal light by reflecting God's light, by your own action. So we have over here again the feminine versus the male giving force, which is also, according to the Zohar teachings, it is also the polarity between the Shekhinah and the Shochen. Shekhinah means dwelling, which means when the light of the Creator dwells in a reality, a physical reality, that's called the Shekhinah. The one who dwells, the dweller, which is the light of the Creator, is the Shochen. So this is again, the male giving force, who is the Shochen, while that's why the Shekhinah is always referred to as the female receiving entity. That's also the earth versus the heavens. Okay, so, and we coming to the last line, it's the creation versus the creator. While the name of God, the Tetragrammaton, the Youdkevitch in Judaism, is the name that represents the heavenly forces, the forces of giving of the Creator that we cannot have too much grasp or perception of, and therefore we cannot pronounce this name. We don't even know how to pronounce it. Whoever think they know how to pronounce it, I have some news for you, you don't know, okay? There was only one time a year in the time of the temple that name was heard. It was when the high priest was praying on Yom Kippur, going into the Holy of Holies, and he was praying. It says that the name of God, the name, the Tetragrammaton, was coming out of his mouth. He doesn't say he said it. He simply channeled it. But no one could really repeat what came out of his mouth. On the other hand, we have the name Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. Okay, that's a name you do pronounce. When you say blessing, when you read the Torah, you pronounce the name Adnu, the name Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, which is the name that belongs to the physical reality, the earth. So whenever you say, whenever we make a blessing, whenever we read the Torah and we pronounce the name of God, we say one, but we think about both of them. We unite them both. Just a simple anecdote. The unification of these two names, which is one of the greatest meditations in Jewish meditation, one of the most powerful, because this is a meditation that you unite the heaven and the earth, the Creator and the creation, which is the job of a human being, because the only creature that can be at the same time in the heavens and on the earth is a human being. You can visualize the heavens and at the same time inject it into a physical action. Animals do not have this two-dimensional ability to think. So whenever we say blessing, it's basically arousing a divine consciousness while doing something that is usually a physical action, like eating a fruit, bread, drinking wine, or putting a mezuzah, blessing over a new house, whatever. All of that have two dimensions. So when we unite these two names together, the name that is basically representing the male giving force, unconditional love and giving, which is the Tetragrammaton, the Youdkevitch, and the name of the receiving Shekhinah power, which is Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. Every time we connect them both together, you create a union. It is basically a unification. So if we take the numbers, we know that every letter in Hebrew is a number. So the number of the Tetragrammaton is 26. The number of the name Aleph Dalet Nun Yud is 65, and together 91. 91 is also Amen. What is Amen? When you hear a blessing and you say Amen, you are really meditating on uniting the metaphysical spiritual intention with the physical fulfillment, action. And by this, you participate with the person who's saying the blessing, you participate in that process of uniting the two dimensions of the universe together, the divine and the mundane, which is also very, very important. Something very interesting. We said that every 19 years of solar years, we can add 7 leap years, 7 leap months, 7 moons, and that will give us exactly 19 years. Okay, so we have the leap year. In Hebrew, it's called a pregnant year, Shana Me'uberet. You know, a pregnant woman has an extra power, extra life. So a leap year is kind of like has 13 months. And 13 is also the number for going above the zodiac. The zodiac is 12. 13 is one above the zodiac, one above the zodiac signs. How do you do it? Because 13 is also the number Echad, 1. Aleph of the word Echad is 1. Chet is 8. Dalet is 4. Together 13. Now, what's interesting, if we have 13 leap years, 7 leap years in every cycle, then you have 7 years times 13. That gives us again 91, which means it takes 91 months of leap years to get the cycle of the moon and the sun back into the same pace. So that's basically that the sun and the moon are dancing, a dance that is based on the harmony between these forces. When we go also, we find this number again when we calculate the seasons. 365 days in a solar year. You divide it to 4 seasons, you get 91 days in every season, plus few hours. Again, 91, which means basically, as we're going to say, the heaven and the earth, they simply shine the glory of God. Now, after we got like these 3 different, very different school of thoughts and civilizations, so we realize over there that somehow Judaism is closer in many ways to the Far Eastern teachings than to Islam and Christianity, although all of them, Islam and Christianity and Judaism, are based on the Torah. How could that be? But you see, there's some other differences. For instance, in most of the Far Eastern, I don't know about one Far Eastern great school of thought or religion that says that the whole world must convert to their religion in order to reach nirvana, whatever you call it, heavens or completion, which is more similar to Judaism, because Judaism does not say you have to be a Jew in order to reach the completion of your soul. You just have to follow some certain basic rules, the 7 Noahide rules. You don't need, not just you don't need, you should not convert to Judaism if you want to connect to God. God created you in a certain nationality, in a certain culture. You should find your correction within the culture that you were created in. Oh, you can look for your destiny, whatever, but converting Judaism, it's not, you don't have to. It's not, there's nothing wrong about the way you are, which is much more like Buddhism or Hinduism or Shintoism or the other Far Eastern religion. Also, the whole thing about reincarnation that is very, very, very strong in the Far East, and is also very strong in Judaism, although because when Judaism started to interact strongly with the Christianity or with Islam that are both against reincarnation, you needed to somehow to hide that stuff and not to talk about it too much, because reincarnation is about hope. It means if you messed it up and you die miserable and basically not done, you have another cycle, you have another chance and another chance till finally you will reach completion. Okay, which means that all is well when the end is well, and if it's not well, it's not the end. So that's also Judaism that goes and aligns much more with Far Eastern civilizations than with Christianity and Islam. So just this is an anecdote. Let's move on to learn some more stuff about it. Okay, so the New Year's Eve is being celebrated since Roman times on January 1st. But this day has changed through the last more than 2,000 years. Now in the Mishnah is first, second century CE, Mishnah in Tractate Avodah Zarah, chapter 1, which means the laws corresponding to idol worshipping. It says few things, and one of them is no dealing with idol worshippers around their holidays. Which are the holidays not to deal with? So there's a list of holidays, okay? And they're called Eids, which is basically the names of the holidays in Rome. And the main holidays that are being mentioned over here, the first one are Kalenda and Starnua. What is Kalenda and Starnua? Okay, so let us make a little research. Amar Rav Hanan bar Rabba. Kalenda, I'm translating from Kalenda 8 ימים אחר התקופה. Kalenda is 8 days after the shortest day, which is December 21st. Starnua is the 8 days preceding that time. Vesimancha in your sign, in Psalms 139, 5, Achor v'kedem tzartani v'tashet alai kapecha. Okay? I don't want to go into it too much, but it hints in Psalms about Kalenda and Starnua. Okay? So, what is that? It says basically that Achor v'kedem tzartani, that it shows there's some trouble that God gives us behind and before us and behind us. But it hints also about these two holidays, Kalenda and Starnua. And I'll explain what does it mean. What is Kalenda? In Latin, Kalenda means the new moon. So, what means the new moon? January 1st is not on a new moon. January 1st is not connected to the new moon at all. No, not now. But till the 1st century BCE, the Roman calendar was lunisolar, and which means the new moon of January was the beginning, became later on the beginning of the year, but they were celebrating the new year on March 21st. Later on, they started to celebrate on January 1st. But still, the word Kalenda, from here comes the word calendar, is coming from the word the new moon. Okay, what about that? So what are Kalenda and Starnua? So, first of all, we have to understand why the Talmud does not allow us to do business with the idol worshippers on their holidays, because on their holidays, they were very much incited into their idol worshiping. They were probably also getting drunk, taking drugs, you don't want to do business with them during that time. Okay? So it's pretty dangerous, kind of. Okay? So now let's go deeper in that. What does it mean? And the sages explain to us in the Talmud what are these holidays really about. And our sages learned that as Adam, remember Adam, first human being, as Adam saw that the day was diminishing, because according to Jewish tradition, Adam was created on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, that is in the fall. Okay? Adam was created on Rosh Hashanah, and after that, he saw that the days are diminishing, which means they're getting shorter and shorter and decreasing. So he said, Adam, woe unto me, lest for the sake of my forgiveness, a world is dark for me and returns to chaos. The world, because God does not forgive me yet for the sin, and therefore the world is getting darker and darker till it returns to chaos. And this is the death that was decreed on me from heaven, which means it says, on the day you eat, you shall die. So now that day is getting shorter and shorter till it's going to be only darkness, and I will die. So Adam stood and sat for 8 days in Lent and prayer. He fasted, repented. He was in a very, very intense prayers. But the end of these 8 days of prayers and fasting, he saw the period of Tevet. The period of Tevet means December 21st, the shortest day. And the days were getting longer and longer. So he realized that, according to one legend, on December 25th. Okay? Now remember, December 21st is not a day in the Roman calendar, in the Gregorian calendar. December 25th or 21st, December 21st is precisely always on the day of the shortest day in the Northern Hemisphere. Okay, so that's called the Tkufa of Tevet. And then he realized only on December 25th that the days are getting longer and longer. So he said, so this is the nature of the world. That the days are getting shorter, and then on December 21st, they start to get longer. He celebrated for 8 days. From the next year and on, the sages are saying, Adam created a tradition for those good days. He established them for heaven's sake, to celebrate the forgiveness and the cycle of nature that is not going into chaos again. Adam created these holidays of Kalenda, which is the 8 days after the shortest day, and Starnua, the 8 days before. He created those holidays for the heaven's sake, to thank God. And the idol worshippers, established those holidays for idol worshiping. Okay, so the origin of celebrating 8 days in the beginning of the winter is very old. It's the oldest almost holiday, because Rosh Hashanah we have, because Rosh Hashanah is the day Adam was created. But then Adam created another holiday, which is celebrating 8 days after the shortest day of the year. Okay? That's where it's coming from. Now, the idol worshippers turn those days of celebrating hope, forgiveness, and renewal into idol worshiping days. Okay. Any questions till now? because we're going from now to the astrological calendar.
What is the source of the what you've got on the screen, the secret of New Year's Eve?
So that's the secret of New Year's Eve. That was started to be celebrated by Adam.
Yeah, where is the source? Was it, where was it? Where do we find what you have on the screen? The writing.
Oh, where was this said? I showed it over here. Here. Mishna Avodah Zarah, chapter 1.
Okay.
It's in the Mishnah.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yes, the January 1st was celebrated until the time of Julius Caesar on a new moon. Only around that first century, the Roman calendar turned into a solar calendar, and that was finalized only in the 16th century. Okay, so any more questions? Now, if you go to the Christian explanation, that that they say that Jesus was born on December 25th, and he was circumcised on January 1st, and therefore we have another period of, because a Jewish child is being circumcised on the 8th day. So again, we have an 8-day period, and you see the same pattern repeating itself from one religion to another, from one tradition to another, till these days, and maybe even celebrating Hanukkah for 8 days. It's also on the 25th of Kislev, is also kind of a reawakening of the same cosmic pattern. Okay, of the holiday of flights, that the days are getting longer and so on. Okay, if you don't have any questions, we'll continue about the astrological calendar. So first of all, although it is during the medieval time, all around the Western world, I'm talking about the Abrahamic world, astrology was dumped into some place without any credentials. Still, you see in Jewish tradition mentioning of astrology. For instance, you see over here a book of Esther written by hand on a parchment, like the book of Esther is being read in the synagogue usually. And here you see in the book of Esther, the zodiac, and that's Germany, early 18th century, which means Jews continued to use the symbolism of the zodiac sign again and again and again till very recent time. If we go a little bit behind that, like earlier, this is a zodiac in the zodiac on a mosaic floor, Beit Alpha Synagogue, which is in a Jezreel Valley, 6th century in Israel. Around the 6th century in Israel, they found many synagogues from that part, around the Galilee, most of them, with the with the mosaic of the zodiac signs. Here we have a more conservative synagogue. This is the En-Gedi synagogue on the shores of the Dead Sea. Still, you have just in writing, you don't have the pictures, but you have in writing, the second paragraph, it says the names of the zodiac signs: Taleh, Shor, Tomim, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so on, the whole 12 of them. And then underneath, you have the dedication for the builders of the synagogue. That's again 6th century in Israel, En-Gedi. So is astrology idol worshipping? Is it part of monotheism? So we have a whole debate about it. First of all, in Psalms 19:2, you have this verse, "Hashamayim mesaprim kvod el, u'maaseh yadav magid harakia." The heavens illuminate the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands, which means as we said before, you see the magic of the number 91 just in the structure or the pace of the heavenly bodies, which means the cycle of the earth around the sun, the cycle of the moon around the earth relatively to the cycle of the earth around the sun. All of this is also based on sacred numbers, 13, 91, and so on. So we have a very important source from Genesis 15, verse 5, and it says, ויוצא אותו החוצה ויאמר הבט נא השמיים ואוספו הכוכבים אם תוכל לספור אותם, ויאמר לו כה יהיה זרעך. Abraham is having a conversation with God. And God says, I promise you that your children will fill the earth, and so on and so on. And Abraham is saying, I don't see that happening. And then it says, Genesis 15:5, and God took him, Abraham, outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. Rashi's commentary, Rashi was the greatest of them all. He simply brought he lived in the 11th century in France, and he brought all the commentaries that were written before his days ever into one concentrated commentary. And he says like this, what does it mean? And God said to him, he took him outside. What do you mean he took him outside? And Rashi says a few things. One of them, he said to him, get out of your astrology. You've seen in the zodiac signs that you are not going to have a son. However, you're going to have a son, although it is not written in the zodiac, in your chart. That's what Rashi is saying. And he's bringing ancient Jewish sages that say that. Another thing that Rashi is saying, you can see it from a higher level even. God took Abram out of the space of this world and raised him up above the stars. And then he said to him, you'll be above the stars. You will be able to control the zodiac signs. Okay? But that has a continuation. Okay? So there's a discussion about it in the Talmud, Tractate Shabbat, page 75a. And it says something very clear. Whoever knows how to calculate in periods and zodiac signs and does not, the scripture says about him, and the work of the Lord they shall not observe, and the works of his hands they shall see. That's Isaiah 5:12, which means basically not calculating the zodiac signs and the periods is like despising the creation of God. God is saying, why did I create such an amazing creation if you don't appreciate it and you don't study it and you don't calculate it to realize how great is the creation? Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani said, and he quotes from Rabbi Yochanan that said, how do we know that men should calculate periods and zodiac signs? Yes, how do we know we should? Since it is said, and you have preserved and done because it is your wisdom before the eyes of the nations. This is from Deuteronomy 4:6. And which is the wisdom in the eyes of the nations? O calculation of periods and zodiac signs. How come? You have to understand that till the 16th century, the biggest astronomers in the Europe and the Mediterraneans were Jewish. The people who created the navigation systems the navigation tables, everything were almost Jews. So that's something very amazing. But it means also calculate, it says, the zodiac signs. רבי חנניה אומר, מזל מחכים, מזל מעשיר ויש מזל ישראל. Rabbi Hanania says, wisdom is according to your mazal, richness is according to your mazal, and the nation of Israel, they also being influenced by mazal. Mazal means in Hebrew, in one hand, when you say, what sign are you, is mazal. Mazal is also good fortune, because the source of the word mazal is nun zayin lamed. Nun zayin lamed means fluid. They are basically pipes through which good fortune flows through, and we are under that flow that the zodiac signs represent. How that was Rabbi Hanania. Rabbi Yochanan said, En Mazal Israel. No, the nation of Israel are above Mazal. Umasmir dato, he explains. I'm reading again from Talmud, Tractate Shabbat, page 156a. How do we know that the nation of Israel are not ruled by the zodiac? שנאמר, כה אמר השם אל דרך הגויים אל תלמדו, ומוטות השמיים אל תחתו, כי יחתו הגויים מהמה. גויים יחתו ולא ישראל. Says, don't go on the way of the nations, don't study their ways, and don't be afraid of the signs of the heavens. Let the nations be afraid of it. So the moment there is a debate, it means there are different ways to see the issue. The Zohar says in Parashat Pinchas, verses 64-66, and Zohar Sulam, come and see that all the creatures of the world before the Torah was given to Israel depended on Mazal. But which means the zodiac signs basically determined every creature's life's destiny. But after the Torah was given to Israel, they were excluded from the obligation of the stars and the zodiac signs. What does that mean? Because some other sages are saying we see a lot of Jews, the zodiac signs do control them. So it depends how strong is your commitment, connection to the tree of life. The stronger you are connected to the tree of life, the less dependent you are on your zodiac chart. Okay, so I'm not going too deep into it, but you can see that there's a lot of astrology in Jewish studies, and there's a debate. Does astrology relate to the nation of Israel or not? And then the answer is depends. The more a person connects to his spiritual journey, the more commitment he has to his spiritual journey, then he can be above the zodiac signs. He can turn destiny around. The less you fight your own materialistic consciousness, the more you're dependent on the astrological forces, which means you are basically ruled by your destination, your destiny. Okay. However, we still have another problem. This is an issue that will reach, but it's called the Kiddush of the month. The beginning of the Exodus is in Exodus 12, verses 1-2. ויאמר אדוני אל משה ולאהרון בארץ מצרים לאמור, החודש הזה לכם, ראש חודשים, ראשון הוא לכם לחודשי השנה. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, this month is to be for you, the first month of your year. Okay? And there's a huge secret behind that. This was exactly 2 weeks before the Exodus. And the sages are saying God gave Moses and Aaron the secret of the Hebrew calendar and how to bless the new moon. What does it mean to bless the new moon? In the Jewish tradition, there are 3 blessings of the new moon. On Shabbat, before the new moon, in every synagogue around the world, there's an announcement of the exact second of the new moon in the following days, following week. So that's being declared on Shabbat before the new moon. It's being declared publicly, and then the whole congregation in every synagogue declare, that's called the Kiddush of the month. We are sanctifying the month. We declare the new moon is coming and it's going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, when it is. And it's going to be the month of Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, whatever. We announce, it's announcing and blessing and sanctifying the new moon. Usually when the person who leads the community is holding the Torah parchment, the Torah scroll in his lap. Okay, after that, the prayer continues. This is happening every month before the new moon. During the new moon day itself, there's again blessing of the new month because of special prayers, especially the Musaf, an additional prayer that is being prayed in every synagogue around the world. That is the prayer of blessing, of sanctifying the new moon. Then, 7 days after the new moon, at night, in many communities, it's the wait for the next Saturday night, just when Shabbat is out. Some wait just for the 7 days are over. They go out and they do another blessing of the month, and there are 3 blessings of the moon. Why is that so important? And the word the Zohar is saying is the word, it's for you or your. It's yours to control. And in Hebrew, the word is lachem, same letters as melech, king. The word is lachem, it appears twice. See if I can draw it. So you have it here in the word lachem. And again, second time lachem. So these are the same letters of the word melech, king. You can rule, you can control the moons. And if you control the moons, you control the cycle, you control the zodiac. So as we said, this tradition goes till this day in every synagogue around the world. Now, what does that mean for us? It answers a very important question. Here it says, another place, אלה מועדי אדוני מקראי קודש אשר תקראו אותם במועדם. This is Leviticus 23:4. These are the holidays of God, mikrai kodesh, calling the holiness in. Those are basically holidays in the Jewish calendar. It's the days, the special holiness, we have to call it in. Asher tikru otam b'moadam. And there's a discussion about what does that mean. And the Talmud, Tractate Rosh Hashanah, page 25a, says, otam, them, there's much deeper mystical meaning to that. Afilu shogegim, otam, afilu mezidim, otam, afilu mut'in. What if, so how do you set the holidays? And that's very simple. When sanctifying the new moon, that determines the days of the holidays. If you sanctify the new moon on of Nisan, Aries, on Monday, so that's day 1. 2 weeks later will be Passover, okay? And then the Talmud says, what does it mean, otam? There's a deeper meaning for the word otam. even if the congregation made a mistake and declared the new moon on another day. Otam, even if they made a mistake, but they did that mistake deliberately, or even they made it by somebody misleading them. The moment the nation of Israel decided when it's a new moon, it is going to be the new moon. It's like, now we can understand why this mitzvah was given 2 weeks before the Exodus. The Israelites, it's like God outsourced the definition of the new moons and the calendar and gave that power to the Israelite nation. Why is that important? Because when we control the new moons and the holidays, we control the flow of fortune and bliss in the universe. We control the zodiac. We are like Abraham, being given the ability to go out of the space of this physical universe and control it from above. That will give us an answer about another thing. There's a question. Okay. Oh. This is basically what I'm showing you right now is from Wikipedia. And it says like this: in the past, it is said that a certain time of the year is a certain zodiac sign. How is it a certain zodiac sign? Because the sun was passing during that sign through that zodiac, which means a group of stars in the heavens that looked like, they have a very, very, very powerful imagination. You could imagine it looks like a ram. And this is Aries. It looks like a Taurus, like an ox. That's Taurus. Looks like twins. That this is Gemini. And so on and so forth. But that was in the past. Astrology today is still using the same zodiac signs that were determined more than 2,000 years ago. However, it's not correct for today. Why? The Earth has its own cycle also of few thousand years, called precision. Now, if you look to the right, you see that this is the axis of the rotation of the Earth. It is the North Pole axis to the South Pole. They are directed towards what is called the star, the North Star, the Northern Star. However, if you look at the left, the way the axis of the Earth is rotating is making a cycle like this, like on the left, every few thousand years, which means the Northern Star of today was not the Northern Stars 2,000-3,000 years ago. The Earth was pointing towards another Northern Star. And that means that the zodiac sign, that the sun right now, when we say this is Aries, the sun is not in Aries. Again, for example, between, like Aries is today, between March 20th and April 19th. During this time, the sun is really in Pisces. So how come this is still relevant? You know, a lot of people do astrological charts and it's amazingly fit to their life story. And the answer is 33 centuries ago, God outsourced that thing to the Israelite nation. So when the Israelite nation determines that the month of Aries starts on a new moon on a certain day, this is when it starts for all of humanity. And therefore, we are not dependent anymore in the stars as the zodiac signs. We are basically counting through a system that was determined 33 centuries ago, and we are still keeping that system by blessing the new moon every month. And that's the only way, according to my poor knowledge, we can explain how the astrological chart is still working till today. Because logically, the Earth is not in the sign that the zodiac is telling us right now. I hope you got something out of it. Any questions?
I have a question. Hi, Rabbi.
Yes, Eric.
Hi. The names of the Hebrew months, are they the same as the signs?
No, you have the names of the signs, and you have the Hebrew months that these names are later, they were brought from Babylon, although they do have a mystical meaning. So you use both names, but they overlay, which means Tale is Aries, and it overlays exactly the month of Nisan. Is that clear?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, very clear. It was a really cool class. Thank you. It was, I think, the perfect way to spend the first of the Gregorian New Year.
Understanding better how this is structured. Okay, everybody.
I have
Yes.
Thank you. So is it always that the zodiac signs coincide with the Hebrew calendar, with the Rosh HaChodesh?
Okay, so I'll explain again. Whenever Jews all over the world decide it's going to be Rosh Chodesh, that's when that sign begins.
Always. Okay.
You understand? Okay, so that this is why when people are asking, yeah, but I was born in the solar, according to the solar zodiac sign, I was born in Aries, but in the Hebrew calendar, I'm born in the month of Taurus, of Iyar. What comes first? And the answer is the Hebrew month comes first because anyway, the zodiac sign means nothing. The solar zodiac sign means nothing. What it means that first comes the calculation of your soul zodiac sign according to the Hebrew calendar, then come the other layers. Where is the sun? Where is the moon? The rising sign, all of that stuff. This is overlay. Now, sometimes it replaces, in Jewish astrology, there's something that is called memusach, misuch, which means hasacha, diversion. Let's say you're born in the end of Aries, okay? So there's already diversion because there's already the influence of Taurus, although it's not Taurus yet, but there's still a diversion towards Taurus. The influence is already getting closer. Is that clear?
So can I check my birth chart according to the Hebrew zodiac sign?
Yeah, very simple. You look for your Hebrew birth date, and that will tell you exactly what sign you are.
Yeah, you can also go to hebcal.com and they convert it. hebcal.com. It's a really good resource. It'll tell you, it converts Gregorian to the Hebrew, and it'll tell you which astrological month or which Hebrew month and everything. Many times people could, like the rabbi said, you could be solar Capricorn, but really like your Hebrew would be Aquarius or Sagittarius or something like that, and it brings a lot of insight into, like, once again, like how the class was, like how you are solar in the solar way and then in the lunar way and the solely lunar way as well.
Could you put that website into the chat?
Sure.
Thanks. And then can I ask, like, there is the other layer that is now very trendy of the human design. So how does that connect to it, if at all?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't get it.
There is now a trend about calculating the human design according to birthday and calendar and everything.
I don't know what you're talking about. So
okay.
What does it mean, human design?
It's just yet another methodology to calculate, my energies and etc. according to
the many system, but we're talking about the basics, that everything is like layers and layers of other calculations. Okay. I remember a student of mine like years ago, and she was going to one of the most famous astrologers in the US. She was a Leo with a rising Leo, and the astrologer became very good friends with her. And she said, I don't, in your chart, you're such a Leo, but I know you personally, there's so much Virgo in you. Yes, because she was born in the Hebrew month of Virgo, but that was not on the astrological chart of that astrologer. So if you're missing the Hebrew birthday, then you're missing the basic layer that all the other layers you build them upon the original layer, because the original zodiac chart does not exist anymore. Okay, it existed 3,000 years ago. The ones that the astrology is using right now does not exist. So why it's still calculated? Because of what he said, the blessing of the new moon. Now we are in control of that. It's like every month you set the moon, what's the next cycle we're going to be. And by that, you just finish the problem. Okay. I need to go to my next class. Okay, so
thank you.
So, and the Gregorian has nothing, and not anymore. So remember that the Roman calendar, once the new January 1st was always on a new moon, not anymore. It has nothing to do with it. Okay, it's just a very artificial way to calculate the days. On the same way, you can just calculate the days from the beginning, from January to January. Although on January 1st, by the way, 2024 years ago, nothing happened. So the world is celebrating nothing, because even the ones who are saying that it is connected to the beginning of Christianity, we know that happened in the time, the story of the birth of Jesus was in the time of King Herod. King Herod died 4 BCE, which means the whole calculation that it is also wrong. So whoever knows what I'm talking about. There's so much to talk about, but we have to complete. I think we got a lot of information. Thank you all. See you next time.
It's wrong.
Thank you.